Good evening and welcome to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. It is Monday night all over again. I am your host, Donna Gray Banks, and tonight our special guest is Mike Sanders, author of Hustling, Backwards, Snitch, Thirsty 1 and 2, and Dead Center. Please welcome Mike to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. Thank you for being here this evening. Hey, Mama.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation is brought to you by Islands Diamonds LLC, Ladero Press, Milton McCulloch, author of Love and Emancipation, and a Dante production. The dates for the Fresh Book Festival will be February 22, 23, 24 in the year of 24, and it's a 2024 book apocalypse. That's what we're calling it. I'm sticking with it. It's going to be good. If you have any questions for Mike, please leave them in the chat room. This conversation is being recorded. Good evening, Mike. So let's get some background before we talk about your books.
All right. Born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. A single parent household, single mother. It was just me and my older brother, and we were in church 4 to 5 days a week. So anytime a kid is pressured to go to church that many times a week, once he gets older, he's either gonna continue that path, or he's gonna stray and go the other way. He's gonna rebel against it. And it's crazy because me and my brother, we both went separate ways. He's a minister to this day, and I ended up going the other route. And at an early age, I started getting in the streets and getting in trouble at like maybe 16, early 17. As soon as I turned 18, I got locked up for the first time for drug possession and carrying a firearm. And I ended up doing I got sentenced to 4 years for that, and I ended up doing 1 year, and that was here in the state of North Carolina. And so when I got out of prison that time, I stayed out 15 months. Got in trouble again in Miami. Didn't know anybody, no family, no friends, anybody.
This is not the place to get locked up for sure.
You know what they say? Go to Florida on vacation and end up on probation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that time I went to Miami. I went down there to get in trouble, but I was supposed to stay down there 3 days. I ended up staying 3 years. So yeah, so I went to prison in Florida. Did 3 years in Florida. So that's right now that's total of 4 years in prison. I got out, I came home. I stayed home 17 months and caught a federal case and got sentenced to 15 years federal time. And so I did 11 years on that. From 1997 to 2008, I was in prison, in federal prison. So my childhood was kind of like, it started out, like I said, in a religious household. Then I started rebelling, and I didn't have a father in the household at the time. It's crazy because the dude who I thought was my father, he died when I was like maybe 5 or 6. And I never knew who my father was because the whole time my mother was telling me that's who my father was. And fast forward till I was maybe 22, 23, I found out who my real dad was. And this crazy part about it, he was living in the same city as I was all my life, and I never knew. And it's scary because I got 5 sisters on his side, and my oldest sister is like maybe a year and a half younger than I am. And you can imagine us not knowing each other in the
You
same
could have
city.
married each other.
If we would have, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
that's how crazy it is in a lot of black households because we are as a people are divided like that. And it's scary though because it could have turned out real bad. But I met my father when I was like maybe early 20s, and I was grown at the time, and you know what I'm saying, it's really nothing he could tell me, and we were just having adult conversations then. But I missed out on having a father figure my whole life. I never had that. I was always looking up to people on the streets, or my uncles, my uncles who was out there doing the same thing that I was wanting to do because I wanted money. So I had a kind of crazy childhood growing up.
So what, I'm speechless. So what made you decide that the guy that died was not your father? Did someone say something, drop a dime and say,
But
"Oh,
see,
that wasn't your real father"? Or
it happened like this right here. I was I don't know where
As
I
we
was at or where.
digress, everybody,
Yeah, right.
we want more
Look,
information.
I don't know what I was doing or where I was at, but I got a phone call from my mom, and she was like, "Come to the house. I need to see you right now." And she was never that intense. Like, I need to see you like right now. And she was crying. I could hear it in her voice. I'm like, what's wrong? Like, so I went over there. Excuse me. She was like, I got something to tell you. I don't know how you're gonna take it, but it's been on my heart for all these years, and I just can't keep it in no more. I just need to tell you something. I'm like, you got cancer? Like, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? And
Right.
she was like, no. She was like, no. So she went and got a picture that was in a frame of the oldest girl, my sister, and she showed it to me. She was like, you ever seen her before? I'm like, nah. I said, she cute though. Who is that?
Who's
And so
that?
she started bawling like, oh, like that's your sister. And I'm like, what? Like it messed me up. My mind was like blown. Like my sister, like you had another child that gave up before adoption. It's like I don't know. Like I don't understand. Making me understand what you're saying. And so she finally ended up telling me that the dude who died was not my father, and she was in an abusive relationship with him, and she was scared to reveal the truth because no telling what he might have done to her. And it kind of I left the house. I didn't say nothing to her, man. I left the house and I was kind of bitter towards her, so to speak. But I understood like I understood where she was coming from, but my whole thing was why wait until I'm an adult to tell me what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Like I could have had a relationship with him. Maybe my life would have turned out a little better than what it did, as far as me getting in trouble and stuff. Because that's a part of why I was rebelling. Because like I say, it wasn't a father figure in the household. And but to this day, man, me and him, we ended up
Good.
getting real close about 5 years ago.
Were you his only son?
I have a younger brother. So he got two sons and five daughters. So my whole time coming up, I only thought I had one brother, an older brother, and I always wanted a younger brother. So when I found this out, and then I ended up meeting my younger brother, it was like I kind of like clung to him. You know what I'm saying? But all of us, we're not the oldest girl, my oldest sister, me and her are close, and my brother and the youngest, we're close. But the rest, other ones, we speak every now and then, but it's not like we don't have that close relationship like siblings should have. But me and my father to this day like best
You can be
friends. So
raised in the same house and not have a close relationship with your siblings.
yeah,
So.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that doesn't that doesn't make
Yeah,
it
yeah,
any different than any other family is what I'm saying. Yeah, it just could
right,
happen.
okay, right.
That's amazing. I,
Mhm.
I I never knew that about you. And yeah, being raised in the church and going to church 3 and 4 times a day, week, yeah, it can make you look at things a lot different, especially when you see things that are going on in the church. But anyway, thank you for that background.
Mhm.
I that's a book in itself.
It is,
You know what I
it
mean?
is.
Does he look like you? I mean, do you look like each other? That's really funny.
But we do look
Yeah,
like each other. That's the crazy
yeah,
part about it. We do look,
yeah.
yeah, we do. And me and my sister like almost identical with the eyebrows, the nose, and everything. Because when
Everything.
I first saw her, it was like you look like me, and she was like, no, you look like me, and it was crazy, man. So we just connected right then. But it is a crazy situation, but it worked out though. It worked
Yeah,
out.
you should because there are a lot of people in that same situation
Hmm.
who may not be handling it as well as you did.
Yeah,
And the story should be told, really. I mean,
yeah.
finding Mr. Sanders. Is that his last name? Or what is his last name?
No, his last name is Kirby. That's another reason why it didn't click early on. He has a different last name than I do. I took on my
Mm-hmm.
mother's last name, so
Mm-hmm.
I never knew. And another thing about that, my mother,
Yeah.
like I said, I was bitter towards her for a long time, but I finally got to tell her that I forgave her for that.
Mm,
And like I said, I came home in 2008 after doing 11 years, and my mom died 6 months after I was home. So it was like a blessing and curse at the same time. So I mean, it was a
mhm.
blessing that I got to spend those 6 months with her when I came home. But I was kind of angry because that's all the time I got to spend with her as a free man after 11 years. But I did get to tell her that I did forgive her for that.
Yeah, that's a blessing
Yeah,
that you all were able to have that conversation.
Right.
So in the midst of your 4 years, your 15 years, your 2 years, when in the world did you decide that you were an author?
Well, I've
Or you
always
were a
like,
writer, let's say that.
right. I've always liked to write, whether it be letters or poems or whatever, because I did a lot of like poetry back in the days, and when I was incarcerated, I did a lot of writing love letters and whatnot. But when I was in the, let me see, like 1999 to 2000 is when I decided I wanted to start writing, because I read when I was incarcerated the last time. I think I read every book any black author ever wrote, because that's all I did when I was in there. I read a lot, and a lot of those books didn't really I couldn't really relate to them. And then I started reading like the Donald Goins and Iceberg Slims. They really are the predecessors of the urban novels, the urban
Right,
fiction street
right.
novels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I can relate to this because I was living that their stories. I was living that at that time. And so back then, the only people who were starting to get published with those kind of novels were Wahida Clark, Vicky
Right.
Stringer, Terry
Mm-hmm.
Woods,
Mm-hmm.
Shannon Holmes. So when I started reading their books, it was like they really telling my story. Like, I know these people haven't really lived that type of life because of the way they was
No, they
writing those
making
stories.
it up.
Yeah, because it really was far fetched and it wasn't
Right,
believable.
right.
So I'm like, man, I wonder if I write my story, will anybody read it? And I pondered on that for a long time, and then just so happened when I was incarcerated, um, a fight broke out in the prison that I was at, like in 2000, and they put us on lockdown for a while. And while I was in there, I decided I'm gonna write my autobiography to see what people think about it, right? So I started writing. And when I came out of the cell after about a week or so, I had like 30 pages written.
Wow.
And so yeah, I let somebody read it, and he was reading it like, and he looked at me like, "You wrote this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wrote that, man." He was like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Man, yeah, I wrote that." He's like, "Man, if you keep this book going the way you started, it's gonna be better than some of the books that are out there selling on the shelves right now." And I took it with a grain of salt, thinking like, "Yeah, this is my friend, this is my partner, so he's gonna say that anyway." You know what I'm saying? But I ended up putting the book down for about maybe a year, and then I got transferred to another place that really didn't have anything going on because it was a new facility. So everybody in there was bored pretty much and didn't have anything to do. So I picked the book back up and started writing again. And when I finally finished writing the book, it took me about off and on hustling backwards. It took me a while to write that because I kept putting it down and picking it back up, putting it down, picking it back up. But when I finished, I let a couple of guys in there read it, and they were like blown away that I wrote that book. Like, man, you wrote this? I'm like, yeah, I wrote that book, man. But a lot of people read it and they loved it because they could relate to it.
So what does that mean, hustling backwards? What is that? Is that like a metaphor? What does that mean?
It's a metaphor.
Okay.
It's like when you're hustling for forward progression, but at the same time, it depends on what you're doing to hustle. It's going to pull you back. Every two steps you take forward is going to bring you back five or six. Like in the streets, I mean, it's no out. It's no out when you're out there selling drugs or whatever, and or robbing, stick up kids. There's no out for that. The only out you have, I mean, everybody knows only two things that come out of that. So I mean, you out there hustling, but what are you hustling for? You're hustling backwards. You're hustling, you're getting money, but at the end of the day, you spending all that money on your lawyers or to get out of trouble or whatever. So it's really like a metaphor. You're hustling, but you're hustling for what? You're hustling backwards.
And
That makes
so
sense.
then there was Snitch, came from hustling backwards, right? So
Right. Snitch.
unpack that story for me.
Okay, well, hustling backwards and snitch are really like one book. It's like two stories in one book. It was like one story, two books. If that makes sense. It's one story, two books. Hustling backwards is based loosely on my life, but as you know, I mean, I had to uh, water down a lot of it, and exaggerate some of it, so it'd be quote unquote fiction and not nonfiction and all true. Um, Hustling Backwards is a story of three best friends. Three best friends. They grew up in the same projects. Went to school together. Their moms knew each other. I mean, they were close like brothers. they started out as stick up kids, like robbing, robbing petty people for petty money, snatching purses off the streets and whatnot. But ended up, long story short, they ended up robbing a big time drug dealer, and they got a lot of drugs and money from him. And so they started hustling, they started selling drugs and whatnot. And doing the progress of doing, I mean, the progress of them hustling, one of them got incarcerated. Now these, mind you, these three dudes are like close, like brothers. One dude got incarcerated. When he got incarcerated, he started telling on everybody. He told on everybody he could think of.
Mm,
And so the other two dudes ended up having to go on a run. One went to Puerto Rico, one went to Jamaica. But Hustling Backwards ends with them going on a run. Snitch picks up where Hustling Backwards in because the snitch ended up getting out of prison. He got his time cut in half because he told on a lot of people, so he ended up getting out. And so the other two dudes are like, man, we can't let him get away with this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to go do something about this right here. We got to go back. And so they pondered on it for a while. And the straw that broke the camel's back was the dude ended up killing one of the other partners, a little brother, because the little brother tried to rob him. He ended up killing him. And so they ended up like, man, it's a no brainer, man. We got to go back over here and get this dude. And so that's where the title Snitch came from because they came back to get this dude, but they knew that this dude was just like them. You know what I'm saying? He was a hustler. He watched his back,
right,
he had
right, right, right,
head on
right,
swivel,
right.
so it wasn't gonna be no easy task to do it. So when they came back, one of the dudes realized that he had a son that he never seen because when he went on a run, his girlfriend was pregnant, but he didn't know. They both didn't know. And so when he went on the run, he lost contact with everybody. He didn't contact anybody because the feds were tapping lines and all of that. So when he come back to the States, he find out that he's got a brand new, well, he's got a 5-year old son that he never
Mm,
met before. So now it's like he's in a predicament. Like, do I go through with this plan and risk it all? And now I got a son, or do I just let it go and go back to my life? And so they at the end they ended up risking it all. I mean, you got to read the book, but it's a lot going on. But you got to read the book. It's a good book, both of them. Hustling Backwards and Snitch.
so there's no Snitch 2?
No, what Hustling Backwards is, but Snitch is the sequel to Hustling Backwards, and
Is it done?
Snitch,
Is the
it's
story
pretty,
done?
it's pretty much where it ended. Yeah, the end
Okay,
of Snitch, pretty much where it
okay.
ended. Mhm.
And when you decided to self-publish, how did you do that?
Um, well, that's a it ain't. I don't know. Say it's a funny story. It's a sad story because
Well,
Hustling Backwards and Snitch got published when I was incarcerated, and a lot of people back then was not getting published while incarcerated. And so I signed with a company out of Atlanta called Black Pearl Publishing back then in 2001. I actually signed a 3-book deal with them, and I gave them Hustling Backwards. Hustling Backwards flew off the shelf when it came out. I mean, it made Essence bestseller,
it
and
did.
yeah, it was in Don. It was every
You
it put
made the AA Troy Johnson's
mm,
book club bestseller too. Hmm.
yeah, yep. And I actually got nominated for an African American Literary Award out of New York, but that's a different story. Anyway, Hustling Backwards and Snitch got published when I was incarcerated by Black Pearl, and they published Hustling Backwards. Hustling Backwards did real good, and 18 months later they published Snitch, and Snitch did real good. But like maybe a year after Snitch was out, I noticed my royalties had stopped. I'm like what's going on with my checks? I mean, I missed 2 checks. Like, what's going on? And I was trying to contact the publishing company. They wouldn't answer my phone calls, and I was writing letters. They were not responding to me. And mind you, I'm incarcerated at the time, so I really can't just get up and
Right.
fly to
Make
Atlanta.
a
You know what I'm
phone
saying?
call, right?
Right. So maybe after a year of me not getting paid, it was like I got a letter from a female who was in a book club, and it was saying, "Have you heard about Felicia Hurst?" There was the owner of the publishing company. I'm like, "Nah." I say, "Well, I haven't heard from her. Like, I know I need my royalties." But anyway, the letter was saying that a lot of her authors were filing a lawsuit, a class act lawsuit, to try to get paid because she wasn't paying their authors. And so I was trying to figure out what was going on with the lawsuit. But maybe another year passed by, and I ended up getting a check for like 11. It was like 11 grand, and I'm like, dang, like 11,000. Where this check come from? Come to find out, she had back paid all her authors, and they went bankrupt. So when
Mm,
they went, so when they went bankrupt, it was a clause in my contract saying if the company ever went bankrupt, all the rights reverted back to the author.
okay, good.
Yeah. So once I got the rights back from that, then I self-published my book. I was able to self-publish Hustling Backwards and Snitch. And
That's why the covers changed, or
that's why the first covers changed. That's exactly
mm-hmm,
why. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And so how did you self-publish?
I went through Amazon, KDP,
Did
Kindle
you?
Direct.
Okay.
Yeah, Kindle Direct Publishing. I went to Amazon. That's how
And
I did it.
how that work for you?
It worked out pretty good because it was no overhead. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was yeah, it was no overhead. It was less strenuous because essentially all you have to do is submit your manuscript, and they allow you to generate your own cover with the tools that they offer. And so I mean, it was so easy, but it's like a 70-30 split, a 70-30 split with the royalties, but it's no overhead. So it worked out pretty good for me.
So who'd you get to, let's talk about, well, we'll get back to that. Let's talk
Mhm.
about how you had Snitch and Hustling Backwards edited. Did you do all the editing, or who did that for you?
At first, I did all the editing because I was when I wrote the book, I sent the book out to a friend of mine, and she would get it typed up and put it on disc and send it back to me in hard copy, and I would go through the pages and make my edits, strike it out in red and all the blackouts and whatnot, and send it back to her, and she would go in and fix all my edits and everything. And we did that for about maybe about 8 months with hustling backwards. We did that for about 8 months, and when I finally got it like I wanted it, I went on and sent it to. What happened was I was reading so many books, and those books in the back of those books, they have the publishing company's information. I don't know if they still do that, but they had the
Yeah,
publishing
they did.
company's. It's okay. The publishing company's information, and so I wrote like maybe 6 different publishers and sent my manuscript in, and all of them went. All of the urban publishers got back with me wanting to publish my book, but the two I went big. The two biggest, like Simon and Schuster, I sent it to them too. I sent it to everybody, and of course I got denied. They wanted me to work on character development and all kind of stuff. But
Uh,
yeah, so when I sent it to the urban the urban publishers, all of them got back with me wanting to publish their book, and I went with the one that had the best marketing scheme that was going to put my book in Walmart, Target, and Barnes and Nobles and everything like that. And at that time, I wish I wouldn't have done that because you see what happened. They went bankrupt and yeah, messed my money up.
so that
But
was just the one book or both books?
that was hustling backwards. And Snitch went through the publisher. The publisher handled all the editing and the covers and everything like that. So and then
Through
thirsty.
Amazon?
No. Um when I self-published my books through KDP, all the editing and everything was already done
Was done.
because
Okay.
it had already been published previously. So I really didn't have to do anything but go in and just update a few landmarks and some little tidbits of the story that I wanted to change. That's all I did.
So let's talk about Thirsty One, Thirsty Two, and Dead Center. Now, one thing, we did get the ability to send books to one of the prisons here in Florida. But one thing they won't let us do is send books with covers that have guns on.
Hmm.
So did you ever think about changing that cover to Dead Center, or does it really have a meaning?
It has a meaning because
Like
the
hitting
book
somebody dead center?
that's exactly what it is, bullseye. Because
Yeah.
the book is about two snipers.
Oh,
Yeah, so I mean the cover has a meaning. That's kind of crazy. I didn't know they was doing that in Florida like that.
no, we
But
can't. We
yeah,
cannot. Yeah. We were
but
trying to get one of Keith Kareem's Death in the City, and they sent it back. Wouldn't let it go through.
why is that all prisons or just that one particular
This is
prison?
Florida. I have no idea. You
Yeah,
know, we can,
yeah,
there are a lot of things that are different here that aren't in any other state.
right.
But when I thought about that, I thought, well, that particular book probably that has real meaning, or you would not have kept it that way. You know what I mean? If you had that kind of
Yeah,
pushback.
right,
So
right. It does.
tell us about Dead Center. Was that your what? How did what is the chronological? Hustling, Snitch,
Hustling,
Thirsty, one and two, and then Dead Center. So
correct.
Dead
That's
Center
correct.
was your last book. Okay, let's talk
That's
about
right.
Thirsty one and two.
I was Thirsty One and Two. Again, it's a series and it's one story, two books. Um, it's about a young lady originally from Chicago who she's a mixed breed, half Filipino, half black, and
That's
the
something.
beautiful girl, yeah, the beautiful girl that all the men are chasing, and
Yeah.
she uses her looks to manipulate these men. And what she do is she set them up to be robbed.
Mhm.
And she got a younger brother. And the younger brother is the robber, so they're really like a team. They're working like a team. And Thirsty One is really the book is really based on a big misunderstanding because the main character is her name is Justice. In this book, I wrote this book different because this book is written in a female's voice, and it's written so well in the female's voice that the senior buyer for Borders Books in New Orleans a few years ago didn't believe a male that wrote that book when that book first
Wow.
came out. Yeah, he called he called my publisher like what female wrote this book and let them put Mike's name on it. And so yeah, so they called me on a conference call and we talked and I convinced them that I did write that book. But the book is written from a female point of view and the main character is Justice, and she goes through a lot of trials and tribulations, and she was
You
car.
froze. Mike. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you said she went through a lot of trials and tribulations, and
Yes, she went through a lot of trials and tribulations. Am I still froze?
no, you're good.
Okay, yeah. And so the drug dealer, her ex-boyfriend, ended up getting robbed by somebody, and the way he got robbed was the same MO that his ex and her brother used to do. And so he was bent on revenge and trying to get back at them. And throughout the whole book is just a big misunderstanding. A lot of people was getting mixed up in a lot of stuff that they didn't do, and it's crazy. And then part two picks up where she has to go back to Chicago, and her brother got killed, so she had to go back to Chicago, and it's crazy, man. And it's a real good book. That's all I can say is a real good book. If I keep telling you, I'll tell you the whole. I sit there and tell you the whole book. That's why a lot of people ask me about my books. A lot of times, I say, just read the back of it. It'll get you the gist of
You
it.
have a
So
synopsis on the back of it.
I do, and then I tell people, man, if I start telling you about that book, I'm gonna tell you the whole book, and you don't even want to read it because you listen to me all day.
And so, I guess it wasn't difficult for you to write in a woman's voice. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I guess because I dealt with a lot of females before that time, and like I said, I was raised by a single mother, and so a lot of her mannerisms and a lot of things I seen her go through, and I just took a lot of her and put that in the book. I mean, a lot different pieces of different females I put into that character. So I mean,
Mm,
it wasn't really hard to write, but it's sometimes I read the book like, nah, I can't believe I wrote that.
I
Oh,
know, I know. Isn't that? Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's yeah, it is kind of rewarding to think that you could actually put all those things together and have characters and
Yeah,
all of them have different voices and you
right.
think, wow, what a gift and what a gift that I sat on that I could have been using for a very, very long time. But you have
Yeah,
to know that things happen in the season they're supposed to happen. So
exactly.
that's just the thing. So tell us about Dead Center.
Okay, Dead Center is a book of, let me see. Have you ever seen? I know y'all have probably seen the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith about
Yes,
the two assassins. Yeah,
yes.
it's pretty much based along those lines, but the assassins are one is an African American male who was a sniper in the U.S. Army, and one is a Sicilian female.
Mm,
And what happens is the sniper, the man, his niece ends up getting killed. Ends up getting killed by some a wealthy her ex boyfriend. Well, her ex boyfriend was a wealthy dude who had got a lot of money because his parents died in a plane crash, and anyway, he ended up killing her. And so when the dude went to court to see what the outcome was going to be, the murderer ended up getting off by
Mm.
reason of insanity. But the real reason was he had a high-powered lawyer, high-powered attorney, and so it kind of like got into the dude's psyche, like he can't get away with this. You know what I'm saying? And so what he started doing was he started contacting the mob. It was two mob families in this city, and he started contacting both sides of the mob. He started killing people and taking contracts on both sides, and then the mob didn't know who was doing it. They thought that each family was doing it, and then they ended up finding out that it was the black guy who was doing it. And so
Mm.
yeah, so they figured they needed somebody to come in and take care of him. So what they did was they called over to Italy and got their top assassin from Italy, which happened to be a female, because her father was the top assassin over there, and he taught her everything. But anyway, when she ended up coming over here, the dude ironically was a school teacher, and the female started working in the school library. So they met outside of work, pretty much to speak. I mean, so they met, and long story short, they ended up kicking it and fell in love, and they didn't know that they were each other targets. They
Oh,
they kept getting assignments, but they didn't know that I'm looking for you, you're looking for me, because they were together. It's that's the one I'm trying to turn into a
screenplay.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
real good.
Yeah,
That's
that sounds good. That sounds like it's very intriguing.
it is
Um, Love and Bodies Left Behind. Yeah, that's how that
exactly
always works really, really well. So
exactly.
how and who are you being published with right now?
Well, Hustling Back with Snitch and Dead Center, I published those myself.
Okay.
But Thirsty One and Thirsty Two is being published by Wahida Clark out of New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
And if you and when you I know you're working on a next book, right?
Actually, I'm focusing
You're
on trying
done.
to. I don't want to say I'm done, but the thing about it, when I wrote those books, I had a passion for it. I was like, I got immersed into it. I was writing those books for a reason, because I know the way I was writing. A lot of people don't like to read long chapters. Anyway, I wrote those books the way I like to read, short chapters, straight to the point, a lot of action and whatnot. And I know now, I won't say I lost my passion for it, but it's kind of like the market is saturated. I mean, everybody and their mama trying to write in books, and the market is just saturated right in the game. It's not like it used to be. It's not fun for me no more.
Mm.
If I write another book right now, I'll be cheating my readers, because it'll be rushed, and it'll be I won't be. I got to get back into that space where I'm into it and something I want to do, something I really really want to do.
Well, I mean, maybe it's not the underworld that you write about now. Maybe it is, you know, finding my father, or um, not my son but my seed, right?
Mm,
I mean, there's a lot of ways you could kind of adapt that into a book and still and help a lot of people, because yours is not the only story. I mean, I don't want to put my family on blast, but I have a uncle that's 10 years, 15 years younger than me. So, right.
it
So,
happens. It
yeah.
happens.
And so, I don't even know how to begin to unpack that story, and probably won't. But I do believe if you have the tenacity to do it,
Mhm.
that you would help other people want to get to that yellow brick road of finding out, well, who exactly is my father, or who exactly is my mother? Because it's mothers go missing too, just like fathers go missing, right?
That's true.
Yeah. And so it would be a good yeah, just finding my father, which is there's a lot of us out here still looking, and maybe you could give somebody that push to do it. So maybe it's not the hustle you want to write about anymore. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's about um loves that you lost and have now, or
Mhm.
just get out of the hustling game.
Right, right. It's a thought. That's why I
And
wrote. That's why I wrote Dead Center. I was trying to get into the mainstream and
yeah,
get away from
yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuck inside
So
that box. Yeah.
and think about what else you can write, right? So when you're in the midst of writing,
Hmm.
do you write by character? Do you write by scene? Do you write with an outline? Tell us how that works for you. Do you handwrite everything first still? No, really? No, you don't do
No, I don't do that no more.
that. Okay.
When I do write, I just write. I mean, I don't outline characters. I don't outline chop. Well, the thing about it, I don't outline the chapters, but I do be like, well, in this chapter, I want this to happen. Or this chapter,
Hmm.
I want that to happen. Or I want to bring these two characters together in this chapter. But I don't outline characters. I don't outline chapters, anything like that. I just sit down and write. Like Hustling Backwards, I just sat down and just wrote that straight through. I mean, it was like the book was so long I had to break the book down because I had so many pages written because I was just writing and so much was coming out.
All right.
But I never outlined characters, chapters, anything like that. I just sat down and wrote, and I did handwrite Hustling Backwards and Snitch with pencil, and I had
Because you
blisters
were
because
in
I
a
was in
gated
college. Yeah,
community. Yeah.
and I had blisters for days on my fingers too.
I
So
know.
yeah.
When the question is, let's get back. This is a question in the chat says, have you thought about circling back to your movie and looking at screenplays? We touched on that at the festival. Okay. So
Yeah.
you want to talk about that?
Um, are they talking about They must be talking about Hustling Backwards because I
I don't know.
started.
You talked to Martin Dale at the festival and he said
Yeah,
you all talked about screenplays.
yeah. I think yeah, me and Martin did talk about that because what I did was I didn't know what I was doing. I told Martin that too. I was just shooting. I was shooting movies. I mean, shooting scenes, and I mean, it was so crazy. And I look back on it now, it's like, what in the world was I doing, man? What was I
What were you
thinking, man?
thinking?
Like, yeah. And I'm glad I didn't finish that movie because I probably would have been a laughing stock of Tubi or whatever the little movie things are now. I'm glad I didn't finish that movie. And the reason why I didn't finish is because one of the main characters who I was using um in the movie ended up getting arrested. Ironically,
Um,
in real life he got arrested, and I had shot so many scenes with this dude, and I couldn't go back and like, well, I'll just kill him off in this scene or kill him off in that scene because I wasn't shooting from front to back. I was shooting based on the locations that I could get. And so he was in almost every scene I shot. And it kind of like it threw me off my square a little bit because when he got incarcerated, I didn't know what to do. Like I was stuck. I
Stuck.
was at a point where
Yeah.
yeah, I was stuck. And when he did get out, it was like 8 months later, and a lot of people who I was using for the movie, they had moved away. Some of them got rolled with Tyler Perry. Some of them moved to California and doing commercials and stuff like that. And they wasn't coming back to mess with little old me because of that. So I was telling Martin, I got so many scenes right now. What I could have did was made it into a web series.
All right.
Yeah, but I think I'm gonna just leave it alone and start from scratch because it's bad.
Well,
And I
you
think
know, Mr. Oh, what is his name?
mhm,
The comedian. He has a YouTube channel series, and it is done very, very well. And it's just 5-minute snippets of stuff. So
mhm,
what is his name? Country Wayne. You're right. And he has
yeah,
made a fortune
yeah,
out of that YouTube channel. And none of those scenes are more than 6 minutes, 5 minutes,
yeah.
right? And if they've all had been optimized and making money. So I don't know. I wouldn't throw it all away. I might think about how to use it.
Right. I still got it. It's
Martin says 6 minutes tops. Yeah. And
6 minutes.
every day there's 10. And I won't tell you that I spend every day 15 minutes looking at I do. So because it's very intriguing. And so it's
Yeah.
just something to think about. And when you decided to just shoot a movie, did you have any background? Did you have any help? Or did you just pick up the camera?
Uh, no.
And...
What I did was I did have enough sense to do a casting call. I did a
Okay.
casting call, and I got a lot of bad actors out of the casting call, and and the cameraman what I used. The reason why I use him because I seen a lot of music videos that he had shot around the city, And I'm thinking, well, I can use him. I can use him. So when he started shooting the movie, it was like he didn't do what I saw him doing the videos. He was just setting up the tripod and hollering action, and everybody just shoot that scene and cut. I mean, it wasn't no movement going on. He didn't follow the characters with the camera. He
Ah,
didn't. It
yeah.
wasn't none of that. So it was just a lot of still scenes, and it was bad, Donna. It was bad.
Listen, we've all had our mistakes. I can't even, I can fill up a trunk with the mistakes
Yeah.
I've made in this
Right.
business. But so let's get back to the screenplay. So
Mhm.
you're trying to get the knowledge to write it, or you want to partner with someone to write it? I mean, I think that there's a piece of software out there that helps you write a screenplay, but where's your thinking for that, especially for Hustling Backwards?
Um,
Or
hustling
is it Dead
backwards.
Center?
Hustling
Which
backwards on the
one?
back burner right now for
Which
shooting a
one
movie. It's
did you
dead
Dead
center. I
Center?
want. Oh yeah, I want to shoot dead center. Um, the thing I want to do, I know a software out there that I could use to do that, but I want somebody who's had experience with it,
Yeah.
who has at least done a few of them, because I don't want to go through the trial and error that I've been through before. I just want somebody who's got experience and knowledge of it, so we can sit down together and do it. I just don't want somebody to go ahead and do it for me. I want, because in the midst of them doing it, I can gain the knowledge firsthand. I mean, besides and instead of just going through software and learning from a computer.
There's a young lady who did a movie called Meeting the Snows. I think that's what it's called. See if you can find it and look at it. If it's something, if her way of filmmaking is something you would like to talk to her about, I can make that happen. But it's called Meeting. Hold on. Meeting the Snows. She premiered here about 5 months ago. And it's that kind of movie. It's action packed. Actually, it's about her daughter being picked up and put into sex slave trade.
Mm,
And how she gets her out of that situation. But fast paced.
mm.
Hold on one second. Yeah, Meet the Snows is what it's called.
Oh,
And
meet
it's
the
on I don't have a TV, so I can't tell you exactly. I think it's on Hulu or Yulu or somebody. Um,
what is her name?
her name is, you would ask me that. Um,
I guess I can find it from the title.
yeah, Meet the Snows.
Okay.
I have all her information in my email, and I'd be glad to make that connection. But look and see if that's the kind of, you don't want to be with somebody who's not filming stuff the way you would like to.
Okay.
So you can get an idea of her process and how she films or how her group films, and go that way. It's the same kind of genre, and I think that would be, you want somebody who's, it's like I write erotica. Well, I don't want someone who writes about science fiction to try to do my screenplay, right? Because it just
Right.
wouldn't work. You really have to have that knowledge.
Exactly.
So yeah, so if I can do that for you, see if you can watch the movie and then let me know.
Okay.
Meet the Snows. It was a great movie. We had a really good time at the red carpet. So the book festival. Every year we want to try to do better. Now we always have a problem with the people coming just because literacy is a hard
Mhm.
nut to crack. But when you are at those kinds of things, what could we do differently um, to make the authors stay more enjoyable?
To be honest, the Fresh Book Fest. I've been to a few. Harlem Book Fair, Atlanta Expo. But the Fresh Book Festival by far was the most immersive, I can say, because it was a lot of interaction with the authors, and like I never got that one on that. It wasn't one on one, but I never got that the interview time like I did on the stage, but with the judge at none of those book festivals. And premiering,
Oh,
yeah, and premiering the films and everything, and I never experienced that at a book fair. I mean, a
oh
book festival.
Yay.
Yeah, so I mean, what you guys can do to make it better,
Get people there. Get more people. That's
other
hard.
than other than a lot more foot traffic, I really can't think of nothing because y'all pretty much nailed it. I mean, as far as seeing the ones I've been to and comparing those to yours, I mean, it was like night and day. It was
Well,
like
we
night.
want to, we try to make it holistic, right? We don't
Mm-hmm,
want you there just, we want you to get knowledge, first of all, and we want
mm-hmm,
people there to share their knowledge, right?
right,
Because what's knowledge if you can't share,
right,
period. And
right.
so I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, but don't say, I mean, you know, we want you to be,
I'm not. Look,
you know, yeah, yeah,
I'm not saying that because
yeah,
Donna
yeah,
Great
yeah,
Banks
yeah.
is on this screen right now.
Because
I'm saying
we want to make sure that we do the right thing, right?
I'm saying yeah, I'm saying it
Yeah.
because I mean
Mhm.
I actually did enjoy that because it was unlike any other book festival I've been to.
Yeah, we didn't let you sleep, that's for sure.
No, I
There's something,
mean you didn't,
there's something going on all the
yeah,
time.
and
So
I
good, I'm
enjoyed it.
glad.
Yeah, I
I'm
did.
glad. I hope that you will come back for our 2024 apocalypse, and we'll talk about that. I
Definitely.
think that's going to be good. We're going to feature a lot of probably books that were banned in the state of Florida, and you know that should bring a whole big light on it too.
Yeah.
So tell me, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with us? This is a great interview because I just missed everything at the festival.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
get a
think
chance to really listen.
we pretty much touched on almost everything. But I know me and you had talked about, like you said, the banned books, and you asked, and I told you about Snitch getting
Right,
banned. Yeah,
right.
when I first wrote Snitch, Snitch got banned from not only um any state prison but federal prison. It got banned from all prisons in the United States because during that time when I wrote it, I don't know if you remember the Stop Snitching campaign that was going on, and
Oh yeah,
it was in the middle of the Stop Snitching campaign, and my book came out with that title in big red letters,
done.
and they wouldn't. Yeah, it was done. They wouldn't let the book in, and that was kind of crazy. I mean, it was crazy. It was
Well,
crazy.
it's not still on the ban list now,
No, it's
right?
not. It's not.
Oh,
It's not.
okay, okay, okay.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. I think we're going to just everything's cyclical, right? And things are
Mhm.
going to it's going to go down. But boy, when it comes back up, you better be
Ooh.
ready because it's going to be good. And if you don't have any stock in certain things, you know, it's going to
Right.
be fruitful. So, Mike, we ask each of our guests to give us a pearl of wisdom.
Hmm.
And so we'd like one from you right now.
Um, but like we talked about, I was incarcerated and I didn't let my surroundings dictate what I
Yeah.
was doing. And so I always like to use a metaphor like your life is like a boat. And as long as you're floating on that boat, that big body of water that's surrounding that boat is your environment, is your surroundings, peer pressure, everything that want to hold you down in life. But as
Yeah.
long as you're floating on that boat, none of that should matter. The boat is going to float until water gets in it. And when that water starts getting inside that boat, which means all the peer pressure, all the pessimistic way of thinking, all the unhealthy ways of lifestyle gets inside of you, that's when you sink. So I
Hmm.
always like to say, keep that water out of your boat. Don't let that water get in your boat. Stay floating.
Yeah. Manifest your life. Yeah. Don't let
Exactly.
it happen to you.
Don't let your surroundings and your environment dictate your way of life and your future.
Wow. I thank you so much for being on Zoom in on a
Um,
fresh conversation. Any questions for Mike before he goes? No? All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And as always, when the lights go out and the cell phone towers go down, all you have left is a flashlight and a good book. Thank you much, everybody, for being here this evening. I'll
thank
send
you.
this to you when it's done, Mike. Good
All right,
night.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right.
All right.